Alright, I wanted to run a bunch of Tier 17 and Tier 16 comparison videos this league. I've only done Imbued Harvest so far, but I'm going to get back on it and I'm going to be doing Legion today. I'm doing the simplest Legion setup here. 4 Legion Scarabs, 1 Legion Scarab of Officers. My next video will probably be on the juiciest Legion setup, but to make this comparison simple, these are the Scarabs I'm using. I ran 50 Tier 16s, 50 Tier 17s, and I'll get into the loot gained in a bit, and the little tricks and what I did, my filter, all of that in this video. But to preface this video, I will say Legion sort of has this track record of being the type of league mechanic that falls off a cliff after the first week of a league. The amount of times I've heard people say, I farmed my Headhunter, my Mageblood, my Mirror in the first weekend with Legion, but Legion is not nearly as good anymore. As I can't count the amount of times I've heard that and the amount of times I've seen the notion being pushed that Legion is not a good moneymaker after the first few days of a league is, it's a load of shit. Legion is still very good in Tier 16. It's probably one of the best Tier 16 moneymakers even this far into the league, especially because the Scarabs all cost 1 chaos each, and even in Tier 17 it is still very profitable and very competitive with all of the other moneymakers. Maybe it's not quite, the 25, 30 divines an hour that you're making from stuff like Scarab farming, but it is still very good and definitely not a waste of time at all. And I will say one of the biggest problems about Legion, which is liquidating the currency, is no longer a problem. You can see right here, this is around 100 and a bit divines of currency that I liquidated over the course of like an hour yesterday, and that wasn't just an hour of purely selling, it was, like 40 minutes of mapping, just listing these, waiting for it to sell, collecting it, storing it away, and going back to mapping. So one of the biggest issues with Legion is completely negated this league. You can see right here, Templar emblems are selling for around 18 chaos. That's how much I sold mine for. You might be thinking, but people are only buying it for 9, 11, 12 chaos. Those people are trying to get a deal. They're trying to get for the lowest price they can. People who want the emblems now, who are running 5-ways, who are making bank, selling services, they want the emblems now, and they're going to buy the ones that are, listed, the ones for 18 chaos here. I know that because that's how much I sold mine for. That's just how the trade market works. So if you want to sell yours now, you can sell them for 12 chaos. If you want to list them and wait like half an hour, maybe up to an hour, 18 chaos is the much. You can see 5 just sold right there, so they are selling at 18 chaos, which is insane. What, a month and a week into the league for these emblems to be this pricey. I think Mariketh is slightly lower, so you do want to make sure that you boost Templar along with Mariketh, but that's been a thing forever now. The yellow ones are no longer, the premium one. Okay, onto the strategy and the atlas she used. First things first, you want to scry the Fortunate from either the Mesa or the Dry Sea. I went with Mesa over to whatever map you're running. I ran Beach because I'm sick of Dune. Realistically, you should run Dune. You'll get better layouts and stuff like that. But this is pretty important to do, is scrying the Fortunate onto whatever map you're running. In 50 maps, I dropped almost 3 full stacks of Fortunates, which is 6 divines on average. You're going to be making a divine extra every 10 maps from doing this scrying thing, so make sure you do it. It can be a pain to find that nameless seer, but it is definitely worth it. And for the Atlas tree, it's pretty simple. Map modifier effect, quantity shrines to help with the, just clearing the maps in general. I took this for tier 17s. For tier 16s, you should drop it because you should be using 8 modded maps. So realistically, just drop this and then go take, like one of the extra Scarab nodes, whichever one is expensive. I took Cartography and Ambush Scarabs because even this late into the league, people are still map farming. Ambush is one of the single best moneymakers in the game, so those Scarabs are still worth quite a bit. The discernments, the regular ones, and then you have a chance at dropping the containment one, which is worth over a divine. The last time I checked, I might have changed this. I did take a little break from the game, so it's been a while. Scarab chance, the ones less common varieties, and then we take all the Legion nodes except from this one. Essentially, we don't really want generals. You can take it, you'll get more splinters. I will say I hid regular splinters like the white, the orange, and all those ones off my filter, but I did pick up yellow and green splinters. Realistically, each click of those were less than 1 chaos a click. you should probably hide them, but I did pick them up just to see how many I would get over the course of the tier 16 and tier 17 maps. Eater a World, again, drop that, take the extra pack size. I dropped the pack size because I needed the nodes elsewhere. And we go over here and we take the Legion nodes down here. We take the extra rewards one. You don't need to take these ones if you can full clear a legion instantly, and if there's like a little straggler and you can't kill it, and then you have to wait like an extra 10 seconds for the legion to actually disappear, on average that's adding over a minute to your maps, and the extra little rewards aren't worth it. For me, I was able to pretty much full clear the legion instantly. There was barely ever any time where I was waiting around on it, except from in tier 17. But in that scenario, I'd already ran this in tier 16 and full cleared those legions, so I kind of needed to do the same on tier 17 to get the best, comparable results, and that ended up meaning that my tier 17s were, like 30 seconds a minute longer than they could have been. So you can drop these nodes right here, these three right here, but if you need more damage for the stasis, if you need a bit more time, whatever, you can get them. Right, and on to the actual results. I will say this spreadsheet, the Atlas tree, and the filter, which I will go over at the end of the video, will all be in the description below if you want to check it out. But 20 chaos investment per map, 1,000 chaos investment total. And from the currency alone, we made around 3,800 chaos. It was skewed definitely towards the luckier end. I would not expect 15 divines and 14 exalts if I was to run another 50 tier 16s. I would expect more in the 8 to 12 range, but that's how many we dropped. 264 stacked decks, 2 Valdos puzzle boxes, almost 4,000 chaos from currency alone. Almost 2,000 chaos from emblems. We emblems fluctuate massively depending on the time of day. For example, I sold these at 18 chaos per, and then like an hour later, I was trying to sell the exact same emblem from the tier 17 loot, and it was selling now at 14 chaos per. So I had to wait and sell it later on in the day when it was back up to 18. It just depends on who's selling at what time, who decides to undercut and how much they undercut by, and then you got to wait for that to be bought up. So if you are going to sell, probably don't undercut massively if you do undercut and you want it to sell quick, because realistically you'll just lose out on money than if you were to just sell it tiny bit below or at the market rate, and you're just wasting your own money. Divination cards. We had 33 fortunates. I think I said 34. We got one pretty lucky drop from the altar, but it's not too lucky that I thought I should exclude it from the results. Overall, 1200 chaos from that. And then from the Scarabs, I just grouped the Scarabs up here at the top right. I didn't list it out. I think I got one lucky Scarab, the ultimatum one that is worth over the divine. But Scarab's almost 1200 chaos, and then we dropped 5 abominations. I realistically expect that I should have dropped maybe closer to 10. With tier 17 map drops, you can kind of deterministically figure out how many you should drop depending on how many tier 16s you drop. For every like 15, 16 tier 16s, you should drop a tier 17. I dropped well above 140, 50 tier 16 maps. I should have gotten anywhere from like 8, 9, 10 abominations, but I got 5, which was on the lower end, which was fine. The money made, 8,685 chaos, minus the investment is 7,660, which is 51 divines profit made, or 1 divine profit per map in tier 16. I'm not going to talk about profit per hour. Everything's different. It depends on how fast you can run it. If it was me, I was running a map in like 4 or 5 minutes. Let's just say 5. That means I could run 12 maps an hour. That means I was making 12 divines profit an hour. But everybody else is slower. And then you gotta like take into account storing, selling, whatever. Even though selling is pretty easy these days because of the currency trade market. The incubators were used as they drop. I filtered out every incubator except the skittering and ornate, so they're the only 2 that I actually used. But I did drop a decent amount of those, and I did not full clear the map or rush the boss and then full clear the map for the quant altars. I just cleared it as I went. If I was doing a much higher investment, I would definitely think about full clearing the map. If I was doing like Eternal Conflict or really strictly rolled tier 17s, but I was doing neither of that. I was just doing, the average Scarabs, pretty lightly rolled tier 17s. So I didn't bother doing any full clearing the map, then running back. I just decided to go clear it as I went. Alright, on to tier 17, we done Sanctuary. The reason is it's just the best layout for Legion. There's not many good tier 17 layouts for Legion, but Sanctuary is one of the better ones. And any reason to run Sanctuary is automatically boosted by the fact that Sanctuary drops the best Uber fragment pretty often, which is the Devouring fragment, which is worth well more than a Divine right now. So you are making a pretty good chunk from that, which is a nice little boost. Currency 5200 chaos made overall, which is a significant amount more than the tier 16. But you can see right here, Divine and Exalted, I dropped less, and the reason I dropped less, Ornates do not drop from tier 17 as much as they drop from tier 16. Again, I think I just got lucky when it came to the tier 16 drops. But Valdo's puzzle boxes, we dropped 3 times more. We dropped, like twice as much chaos. We dropped a bit more stacked decks. So overall, 5200. And then the miscellaneous currency, which is like chisels and eldritch currency, we dropped a significant amount more in tier 17. Emblems, I counted how many emblems we actually dropped. It was 208 in tier 17, 202 in tier 16, so there's practically no difference. But I ended up skewing towards more of the green ones in tier 17, which is why I made a bit more money in that. Divination cards we make significantly less. It was 1200 because of the Fortunates. It's only 145 because of voids and chaotic dispositions. That's pretty much all you're ever going to be dropping in tier 17s. Miscellaneous, Scarabs, we dropped a decent amount more, like 500 chaos more. It's not as much as I would expect, but I didn't roll for Scarabs. You can see right here, I only rolled for Quantum Currency. So it is what it is. We dropped a significant more like good items, an unnatural instinct, a high rolled blood notch, an enlighten, and a bunch of other uniques. Tier 17 is definitely skewed towards more, big lucky jackpot drops, so I'm not going to be excluding any of these. But our miscellaneous was like well more like 2000 chaos more, and then you have the boss fragments on top of that, which you can see right here. In total, 7000 chaos made from boss fragments, which almost makes up for the actual cost of the tier 17. I think it can. I think I like failed 2 maps. Maybe if those were devouring fragments, I would have actually well, not failed to map, but failed like 2 bosses. But maybe if those were devourings, I would have actually made my money back. Sometimes you rip bosses no matter how good your build is. My build is like pretty damn good, so I'm not going to be like excluding the fact that I ripped those because realistically, everybody's gonna rip a boss every now and then, or at least 99.9% of players are. Anyway, the money made overall, 18,000 chaos made in tier 17, which is almost 2.5 divine per map, but obviously the massive investment minus that, it is 1.3 divines profit per map, which is like a tiny about, well, like 30% more money made when in comparison to tier 16. So pretty much tier 17, it's good, it's better. Realistically, the legions themselves are the exact same. The amount of money that I was making extra can just be attributed to the fact that I got that from the regular map mobs, which are obviously going to be much juicier than regular tier 16 mobs. So if you want to run Legion, but you think I can't run tier 17, so it won't be worth it, it will definitely be worth it. Not only that, these maps took me a couple minutes longer to run than the tier 16s, which means my profit per hour might actually be pretty much on par or slightly below or very, very slightly above the tier 16 money making. So yeah, I'll say right now, my next video is going to be the most strictly rolled tier 17 legions, Eternal Conflict, all of that, Nemesis, Scarab, pretty much full investment. And if I was to guess, when you do fully juice tier 17 Legion, that's when it shines when in comparison to tier 16. But the average juiced Legion, uh, just run it on tier 16. You don't need to run it on tier 17. You don't need that FOMO. If you can't run tier 17, there's not much of a point to. Alright, and just to real quickly go over my filter, pretty much just hid everything that was splinters, lower than a chaos, and all the little bubblegum currency that's really not worth selling and converting this late in the league. I did keep on the Templar and the Maraketh splinters no matter the stack size. Realistically, you should not be picking them up if it's not like at least a stack of like 5, because that's less than a chaos per click. But I wanted to see how many emblems I would get in total if I picked all of those splinters up. And over a large enough amount of maps, you will be making an extra couple of divines if you do decide to pick up the Marikev and Templar splinters. So, you know, it's up to you if you hide those. I will put this in the description. I don't know how to link filters, but I'll figure it out hopefully. And yeah, that's the video. If you got this far, consider subscribing. I'm going to be doing a lot more tier 16 and tier 17 comparison videos. I've not uploaded in like 10 days because I kind of got busy, but I'll be hopefully comparing pretty much every single league mechanic. My next video will be just Eternal Conflict, fully just tier 17s, just to see there's like a map mod on tier 17s I want to test out, but we'll see how much better it is than just the regular Legion tier 17s.